Hi, I'm Justin Flans with Tab Performance, and today we're going to show you how to install an Xotic Customs Tail Dragger air suspension kit. And now I'm going to have Derek from Xotic Customs take over.
Hi, my name is Derek with Xotic Customs, and today we're going to be taking you through the install of our 5-inch Tail Dragger air suspension kit on a 2014 V-ROD Muscle. Okay, we'll remove the compressor from the box, and it comes with this bracket already on it. And with the V-ROD air box, what you're going to want to do is take the bottom bracket and you're going to want to bend it so it curls up a little tighter. Like so. And now you want to take the compressor and turn it in the bracket. Once you've bent the bracket, now you need the compressor to sit straight up and down, so you'll loosen the bracket clamp, and then it allows you to rotate the bracket around the compressor, and that way you can adjust your angle so it fits inside the air box. Just tighten your bracket back down and you're ready to drill your holes. Now to mount the compressor, you just want to mark your holes. Make sure no debris stays in the airbox area. Make sure you get it all out. A little bit of two-sided tape. Just stick it right down in here. You want it as low as you can with a good flat surface to mount on, and then your air box is going to come up here high enough that your hose won't get kinked. Alright, now we're going to drill a hole for the wires to go back and forth between the air box. We used a 5/16 drill bit. That should get you a big enough hole for all the wires. And then we'll bring our power wire, or fusible link wire, into the air box, and we'll take both ground wires and run them out of the air box. Okay, we're going to mount the switch, or drill the hole for the switch. You have to get this wiring harness pushed down and out of the way, and really pull it down out of the way far. And we're going to install our pre-wired switch. You want when we always install it, the up is forward, down is back. You can install it whichever way you like. We always wire the white wire as compressor or up. So think of it as a teeter-totter. As you flip one side of the switch, it activates the back side of the wire. So down would activate the blue, up would activate the white. And I just put a little red Loctite on there. And with our tail dragger kit, it comes with enough wiring to be universal for any model, from the FLs to the V-RODs to the Sportsters to the Trikes. So on the V-ROD, all your wiring is going to stay right here. So you're going to want to just split the heat shrink, and you'll probably end up cutting your wiring about that short. So don't freak out that you have a lot of wiring left over. Now we'll unravel the wire. Since it's so short, each wire will just individually go to each place. The wire is already twisted, so that way if you run it from a fairing all the way down to your battery box, it stays a nice tight bundle. You don't have miscellaneous wires scattered everywhere. Okay, now we're going to take our red center wire, which is going to be our main power. That's going to go to our fusible link coming through the air box. Go ahead and trim it to length. And we solder everything whenever we do an install. But just so you have everything, we even include butt connectors in the kit. But we do recommend soldering if you can. Alright, now we've got all of our soldering done. We've got the main red wire from the center going to your power, to your fusible link. And then you've got the blue wire from the switch going to the power on the dump valve. The white wire from the switch going to the power on the compressor. Zip tight all the wiring together. Just make it nice and neat and tidy. You don't have random stuff floating around in here. Okay, now we're going to put our ground wires, our compressor ground wire and our dump valve ground wire, strip them. Cut them to length to go to the negative on the battery. Go and put them together. And then using the ring terminal that's provided in the kit, go ahead and get that on there. Alright, now we've got all the wiring done. And we put our fuse back in. And then we are going to move on to the plumbing side of it. So we'll probably put our four-way right here. And we'll just zip tie it to this wiring here. And then that way we can run a compressor line down to the bottom here. The dump valve line will go to this side. And both of these lines will come out of the box and go all the way back to the shocks. Okay, and when you're putting the air line into the push to connect fittings, simply push it all the way in until it bottoms out, and then make sure you pull back on it to really lock it in tight. Otherwise you might get a little leak around that edge. In order to remove the airline, push in on the cap and in on the airline at the same time, and while holding in on the cap, pull out on the airline. When you cut the airline, just cut it with something that'll make a nice clean straight cut. Scissors or these wire clips will actually work really well. Just get a nice clean cut on the end of it. And then wherever your length is going to depend on just where the line wants to lay naturally, so it doesn't bind up or kink or bend or rub up against something that's going to be hot and burn a hole in it. Okay, we're going to drill 2 holes back here using a 1/4 inch bit, so that way our air lines can run back to the shocks. And what I've done is taken tape and wrap it around the drill bit, so that way if you're drilling from the inside out, you don't accidentally go too far and get into your the other tanks back here. Okay, we've run 1 airline through here already, and to determine where to cut it, basically just fold it over in half and give yourself, just cut the remainder airline in half. You should be plenty good. Just make sure you have enough to get down where you want to route it and then where it gets to the shocks. Okay, now we've got both airlines run back here to the shocks. We've taken them out of the air box and we just tucked them behind the wiring here. You just want to run it to where it's not going to get pinched or bound up or cut or burned. So we've got one wire or one hose running back through this way and the other one running underneath here back to the shock. Alright, we'll start by removing the old shocks. Make sure your jack is jacked up enough to take the tension off the shock so it doesn't spring up and the bike doesn't fall down. Okay, and because V-RODs are a little different setup than all the FLs, and our kit is universal between the FLs all the way down to the V-RODs, we're going to use the stock bolts with the V-RODs because they're a little bit longer than the bolts provided in the kit. And so basically you can use our washers with the stock bolts, and then you're just going to want to put a little bit of Loctite on them just to double up and make sure. So they came with Loctite from the factory, so we'll put Loctite back in them. Make sure to start the bolts by hand so you don't cross thread them. And then also there's a plug, a white plug that's in the fitting on the shock. Make sure to pull that out first, otherwise you'll have a hard time pulling that shock out because it won't let any air pass through it. This one, it just has a nut on the inside. Alright, and then once the shock's mounted, you're going to take your air line, measure it, see how much you need, make your final trim. Go ahead and just push it into the shock. Make sure you push it in all the way and then pull back on it to make sure that it's locked. And then make sure the fitting is pointing up so that way it clears the tire when the bike is all the way down. Alright, the last step in the process is air it up. Make sure you've got it aired up a good ways. We've already aired it up a bunch. Get a bunch of pressure in the system, and then you want to use a glass cleaner like Windex, but make sure it's a glass cleaner, not soapy water. Soapy water is too heavy and it won't show the small little bubbles. Then go ahead and just spray all of your fittings. Make sure you don't see any bubbles coming up out of the fittings. Pinch your four-way, your dump valve, and your compressor. And then you're also going to want to spray your shocks.